the Baen Free Radio Hour.
Hello and welcome to the Baen Free Radio Hour. The next 2 weeks, we'll be bringing you something a little different. We're talking to a select group of podcasters and internet personalities about what brought them to engage with online communities with their content and fandom. Our panel includes the fine folks from Bullshido and Blasters and Blades, as well as Jill Bearup, whose advice on dealing with some of the platforms has been useful to a great many people, including the Baen Free Radio Hour. Later, we continue with part 24 of One Jump Ahead by Mark Van Name. Hello and welcome to the Baen Free Radio Hour. I'm Griffin Barber, your host. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We've got an interview of the interviewers or the content creators on YouTube and in other places. We have Frost, also aka Fletcher Neal from Bullshido, as well as Steve, his partner in crime there. We have J.R. Handley from Blasters and Blades, does frequent interviews of lots of folks for the literary universe. And we have Jill Bearup, who does lots of different things in YouTube land and elsewhere, mostly having to do with podcasts and actually very informative work for some of us who are just entering into this arena on how to make sure that the platforms conform to their own requirements, that kind of thing. So we very much enjoy that and welcome everyone. Steve will be with us in a few moments. He's got some family pickup to do, and then we'll get started. But first off, I wanted to ask each of you to introduce yourselves. So we'll start with you, JR, if you'd give us an intro for your why you're here and what you do.
So I'm J.R. Handley. Sometimes I tell lies. I mean, write books. And one of the things that I learned through some marketing books that I started way back when, because I started writing as therapy, so I had no understanding of the business, was that you can't really just talk to authors. You got to actually talk to the people that might want to read your stuff. So I started looking for books, or excuse me, for podcasts, because I listen to podcasts when I go for my walks that were about science fiction or fantasy. And almost every literary podcast out there is how to be a writer. Some people might even have good advice and know what they're talking about, but that's not guaranteed. And so I said, well, if no one else is doing it, I'll do it. And so we started with Sci-Fi Shenanigans, and it focused exclusively on sci-fi. And then when I started writing military fantasy with James Ward, it's like, well, maybe we should rebrand. And that's how we became the Blasters and Blades 5 years ago. And we talk to speculative fiction, everything, movies, books, comics, you name it, we'll talk about it. The only rule is it has to be targeted to the reader or the consumer. And we are apolitical because nobody's ever convinced by ranting at the internets. I can yell at my own void if I want to.
And you're a veteran as well, right?
Absolutely. I actually started writing, and then through that, the podcasting as a writing as therapy class at the VA hospital.
Cool. So we'll go ahead and start with you, Fletcher.
All right. So for those of you that haven't heard, that aren't really into the martial arts, we're from Bullshido, and Bullshido started about 23 years ago as just a forum on the internet where people could complain about BS in the martial arts. And over the years, we just kind of got pretty good at calling out BS and a bunch of other things. And then as things evolved, we decided that our mission should be a little bit more focused on not just martial arts or the health and fitness industry, but ways in which regular people, mostly dudes, our core audience is dudes, kind of a sausage party, is to keep them from being victims of misinformation, of being manipulated by all those little things that dudes can easily get manipulated by, in their pursuit of trying to be dudes. So, so over the years, it took that shape, and we're kind of in the misinformation, science, health, fitness. It's a weird thing, but yeah, for I don't know, about 10 years, it was the world's largest active fight club. So we've had events on 4 continents. I've had my face punched in a couple times. So all in good fun. It's just kind of nice mix of violence and science and those sorts of things.
And you're a veteran as well?
Currently serving in a reserve part-time capacity, but yeah.
Cool. Steve?
Oh, hey. So I'm also with Bullshido. Fletcher scooped me up a few years back. And then on top of that, let's see, I'm a disabled combat vet. I served with the 82nd Airborne, 1st to the 505th. I'm a writer. I've written 2 books. I have had the worst writer's block for several years because I was going through some family stuff. But since then, I've opened a comic shop and closed a comic shop thanks to COVID. And I also work with the autism community and have on and off at the same center for about 27 years. And also my kids on the spectrum. So yeah, I think I think that covers everything.
For sure.
Yeah.
And Jill.
Well, my name is Jill Bearup, and I have a YouTube channel where I started it in 2011, and I started talking about my favorite things. The first thing I ever did a video about was Reichsburg's Grand Central Arena, and then I discovered that nobody listens to talking about books if they haven't heard of the book and they don't know who you are either. Um, so when I was 32, I needed a hobby, and my husband suggested I should do something that lets you go outside. I went and saw one of the Star Wars sequels, saw them fighting with lightsabers, thought there must be a way to learn to pretend to fight with lightsabers. That must be a thing. Discovered stage combat, and then after about 6 months of being really into that, one of my friends said, "You talk about it all the time. Why don't you make videos about that?" And I said, "That's a brilliant idea."
And stop bugging me.
He didn't put it quite like that, but there was definitely an implication. So I went full time on YouTube during COVID, which, as it turned out, was a very good time to do it. It could have gone horribly wrong, but hey. And over the years, I made a series about a writer trying to write a romantasy and her heroine being too sensible for it. People said, "Oh, that's really clever marketing for your book." And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, you should write one." And I said, "Okay." So I did. And I also occasionally randomly get banned from things or demonetized or for no apparent reason. And then I get on the internet and complain about it. And people seem to find that amusing. So
Well, you
many
also find
things.
solutions. That's one of the big things that brought to my attention was like, oh yeah, that's a good way to continue on with it because oftentimes a lot of these platforms they literally they're not answering their own phones. You know,
Mm.
it's simply going, oh yeah, this is what we heard is going on, so we're going to do this in order to take action against it. So it's quite fascinating the way some of these things work. So glad we got past the introductions, and now we can get into the fun stuff. But I also always like to ask a hard question first, and I've modified it a little bit for this panel. But what is the coolest thing for you guys on Bullshido? What's the coolest thing about that for you? Not the fans, not the guests, not any of that other stuff. What is the coolest thing for each of you about doing the Bullshido podcast or even just the moderating the forums, etc.?
You want me to take this one first? I'll,
Yeah,
I'll
go
go.
for it.
I think it's the ability to work out through my childhood trauma and bullying from being a smarter than normal kid in a very boring middle or small town Texas high school and getting a lot of grief for that and not fitting in. And now I'm significantly smarter than all those people, and I get to watch their lives suffer from being vulnerable to misinformation. But to bring it back around, it's not really about that as much as it is seeing how that plays out, and then I get to help those people and feel smugly superior to them at the same time. So it's kind of a win-win.
Quietly up until now, anyway.
Just yeah.
And you see,
So just about Bullshido, let me see. I've met a lot of really interesting people, thanks to Fletcher. One guy, who was it that we interviewed that had gone up to the Arctic Circle?
Oh, that was Stefan Kesting.
Yeah, yeah. Who is actually pretty well known in the MMA scene. Like he popped up at someone's tournament and like coached the guy through the tournament like really fast.
Yeah,
Wh-
he's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, he's kind of awesome. But that interview in particular, Fletcher wound up losing connection halfway through, so I had to steer the ship on my own. But I was super interested in the guy because he'd gone up to the Arctic Circle in a kayak, and at one point, like dealt with polar bears and actually got almost face to face with a polar bear at one point in a going up to a cabin. So yeah, I get to meet all these really interesting people. A lot of them who I didn't know about until Bullshido. So yeah, it's been kind of a cool ride.
And you, JR?
So first, I'm a fangirl. So I've actually, Jill, I've read watched your podcast. I didn't realize it was you until you just said that. But my mom put me onto it. She's like, "You got to watch this. It's freaking hilarious." Because I'm a history major, so I always like pull out what little bit of hair I have left when I see them get these details wrong. So yeah, I really love that. And as far as podcasting, I think for me, it's meeting people I wouldn't otherwise have met. When I go to a bookstore now, I'm like, oh, I've interviewed that person. I know this person and this person. It's kind of cool to go through like the Barnes and Noble or whatever local bookstore you have, and to have gotten to talk to those people. But I will say the coolest part for me is talking to the people whose books I read as a kid. So like talking to Harry Turtledove was kind of cool. So yeah, for me, it's just the talking to people. I'm a little bit of a talker. They used to call me Motor Mouth, so it's kind of perfect fit.
Well, cool. And Jill?
I think my favorite thing is that I now get to be interested in a thing and then go and research it and then tell people about it, and that gets to be my job. So at the minute, I'm working on like a history of fan fiction, and now I think I have to go watch the Star Trek original series, which I never did before. Like I watched Voyager and I watched The Next Generation, but the original series wasn't really on the BBC so much at the times when I was on it when I was a kid, and because the whole culture around it and how it changed the sci-fi fandom, which was very different before Star Trek, was so interesting. I was like, I need to go and see why all these ladies are so obsessed with Mr. Spock now. Um, but
And some
yeah,
dudes.
I get to tell people about things I find really interesting, and that's my job. Like that's a great job to have.
Yeah, for sure. Well, very cool. So why that particular subject matter? We'll start with you, Jill, because I've done you this last couple times. Why that
Um,
particular subject matter? I mean, obviously it's cool, but
I think I started with just reviewing media, and I did that because I don't know, 2009 or something. I started watching The Nostalgia Critic and sort of Channel Awesome and that guy with the glasses, and I was on that website for a little while in like 2014, 2015. People are always surprised by this because no one remembers it at that point. Everyone had kind of gone away. But I I got into stage combat and I realized this is a thing that's like it there is realism and then there's verisimilitude. And just because you have a thing that is realistic, and I couldn't tell you if a fight is realistic or not necessarily, but that doesn't mean that it serves the story. And nobody else was talking about it, and I thought it was really interesting. And so I talked about it, and people went, "That is interesting." So that yeah, I started doing a thing and realized nobody else really it's theatrical combat is extremely niche. But
yeah.
as it turns out, people like listening to you talk about it. So it's everything everything I've done since then has just been that looks like fun. I'll give that a go.
Well, that's interesting to me because we're on here with you and I, the civilians. I'm on here with three veterans and active duty personnel. It's yeah, we can get it realistic, but do we do it as enough, that kind of thing. So this has been kind of a fascinating kind of corridor to be working in, and stage combat, as far as I know, has been around for a very long time as well. And how it's I'm sure the Greeks had complaints about how it wasn't like that. He would never hold his shield that way, that kind of thing. His greaves are on wrong. But pretty fascinating stuff. So on to the Bullshido guys, the why your particular subject matter. And
I'll let Steve go first, and then I'll follow up.
I mean, am I talking about my like writing subject matter, like why that, or
well,
just?
it's up to you if you want to talk about the Bullshido stuff or you want to talk about
I
your own
mean,
personal
I
stuff.
guess I can do both. Uh, Bullshido was I mean, I met Fletcher I think through Setsu. Found him online through Setsu. and we had an exchange. I don't want to bring up the guy, but it's somebody you know. Uh, but we just sort of became friends, and then he was just he's basically fighting disinformation, and especially during the height of COVID, because like Fletcher is an actual scientist, like he works in like an army lab and stuff like that, and so during that time, there was so much disinformation, and watching him just slap people around online was really intriguing and also good fun. Um, so yeah, I don't know, Fletcher, do you wanna add to the Bullshido stuff since we're on this?
Well, I make the joke about working through childhood trauma, but I realized at one point as I got older, and because I was kind of a bit of an edge lord in the early internet days. In fact, I've got I think one of my profile pictures is like, "You're the worst artifact of the early 2000s internet," and so, but and I realized that had it not been for the influence of several different people, I could have gone down a bad route with that all the way to today. So I'm a firm proponent of the concept of moral luck. So, like I said, if it wasn't for the fact that there were people out there nudging me just slightly, like a friggin' pinball machine, onto a different track, I would have been one of these people that we are actually now either dealing with or complaining about or trying to reach ourselves. So I think it's really important. And when I talk about people like young men, the little edgy, little edgy people that are doing the like antisocial nonsense online, the 4chan goons and all those well, I'm not gonna get into politics, but let's just say that there's a lot of misinformation and bad actors out there that are taking advantage of young men and doing stuff to manipulate them against their best judgment, against their best interests. And then when I became a father, I wanted to ensure that my kid didn't get taken in on that. So I'm doing what I can within our project to create a world where there's less likelihood. I know we can't plug every crack in the dam and we can't like solve all the problems, but if we can just be another voice out there in the middle of all this stuff and say, hey, this is how you think critically, this is how you avoid getting taken in by misinformation, then some people will have the skills to avoid that and the world will be just slightly less absurd.
Yeah, that was well said. To get back to my creation stuff, I guess to go back onto that. I write apocalyptic fiction. I probably should have explained that at the beginning. And the way I got into it was really weird. I got a head injury in the army, and I got really obsessed with like zombie pop culture, and then was also writing as for to help with cognitive therapy. So I started writing, and then I just started writing stories, and then I decided I was gonna actually publish them, and had been obsessed with that stuff like pretty much ever since then. But the other thing I'm obsessed with is art history, with a modern art emphasis. So in my apocalyptic fiction story, I've given lessons on art history on the slide. So like
Why not?
it's kind of the two things that have come together. So
Very
there
cool.
you go. That's why.
JR?
So like Steve, I suffered a head injury in Iraq. And so one of the things they're big on is if you go through the Walter Reed Clinic, is your brain is a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. And the goal, according to my neurologist, is it's not if I get dementia, it's when. The trick is to lead such a healthy life that it happens the day after I die and not the day before. Because it is, you can do the exercises. So that's kind of how I started writing. And when I started, we were supposed to kind of take our trauma from Iraq, because I was there in 2003 and then in 2005, and write about it in a way that was disconnected as a way to sort of process it. And for me, fantasy felt too visceral because it's history major. So I knew exactly what medieval combat looked like. So for me at the time, it just made sense that something about plasma bolts was cleaner and less messy. So I started writing science fiction. And then the professor who was teaching at one of the local colleges was like, JR, why don't you publish this? This is actually good. And I'm like, no, you have to lead more life before you could be a writer. I haven't done that yet. She's like, you've been to 2 war zones. What more do you want? And so I started engaging with Tim Taylor, who wrote the Human Legion series. And I was basically sightsee driving, and rather than be rude about it, because he could have been, he was like, okay, I challenge you to write to answer the questions on the side that you want answers, write them. So it's supposed to be a series of novellas, but I never do anything. Like, I was the kid in grad school who had to be told not to write as many words. Like, I had to write less. Like, you were limited to this is your cap. You go more than that, I'll fail you. So I started writing, and what was supposed to be 3 novellas became 4 novels and 2 novelettes. And from there, sort of off to the races. And then I realized when you start researching the science that maybe it's not so clean. So I write fantasy now too. So that's kind of why I picked the subject matter. And like I said, I've always liked history, and it's a good way to keep the brain going. I mean, I've been a reader since way back.
Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because, I am and I remain a huge fan of David Drake's work. And one of the things they said about him is that he never stopped writing horror. He just changed the milieu to military science fiction.
Yeah.
He wrote a lot of his Balefires collection is a bunch of his Lovecraftian kind of horror stuff. And he went into writing just a different type of horror and was wildly successful in that arena.
He's talked about that, about some of the experiences in Iraq that led to stories and how the real event became what is the fictional event.
Yep, for sure. No, it's interesting. And that he also used it as therapy. Like, it was his way of getting his mad out.
The hardest part for me was realizing that what is believable in fiction and reality don't always mesh. I remember my first editor, he was like, don't put that in there. Nobody will believe that. I'm like, what are you talking about? I've got the accident or the incident statement. That happened to me. And say, I don't care. No one's going to believe it. And so I'm always shocked that what we'll accept in fiction versus what really happens doesn't always line up.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, and that's also something for Jill as well. Is it like the stage combat? Does it look realistic? Well, yes.
So they actually gave us, when we were taking the writing as therapy class, they called it the Barbie test. And basically, can you hold 2 action figures and make them do the maneuver? And if you have to dislocate limbs, then unless you're adding magic or some other justification, it doesn't work. And I find a lot of people write fight scenes like I mean, sure, it works if you can take your leg off and then hit them with it and then put it back on, but. And I'm not even a martial arts expert. I was told when I did the hand-to-hand combat training in the Army back in the late 90s that we're just teaching you enough to get your butt kicked in a bar fight.
Yeah. To think you know enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting to me too, because having been there and having to write the incident reports of hundreds of hand-to-hand combat incidences, literally hundreds. I'm constantly shocked, like, hey, that guy would not be waking up. That guy would have, not be moving that quickly after having suffered that injury, or, that noise that they are so fond of putting in of the bone crunching. Yeah, generally that puts somebody hors de combat. You're not coming back from that.
You mean if you hit somebody in the back of the head, the base of the skull, they don't just wake up a few hours later?
Exactly. or if they do, they have one pupil shot and are going to have permanent injury stuff going
clear
on.
Clear fluid leaking out of the ear.
That's what people get wrong about the blast trauma too. Everyone thinks it's the shrapnel or the fragments that does the damage. It's the actual concussive force that pushes it. So when you see them, I'm in a tank that just got blown up, but it didn't penetrate, so I'm good. I'm like, no, you still got your bell rung.
It is a bell.
Oh, I was going to comment on that too. Yeah, the blast force, like, it knocks you to the ground, and then like all the sand like becomes like little shrapnel in your skin, and your head is just rocked, like you just can't respond for a good amount of, I don't even know how much time. You lose a sense of time too.
Not like you have any kind of experience with that. I mean,
yeah, right.
How many times did it happen to you?
I don't know. I mean, I had 9 concussions in the Army, and I mean, because I was a paratrooper, so like I bounced off the skin of the aircraft and came in. I think my 4th or 3rd jump knocked me out. But as far as blasts are concerned, I think I was in proximity of 3 big ones in Iraq. So by the way, if you see all those weird stuff, this cat is bugging me. He's demanding my attention. So if you see a tail whipping me, I'm sorry.
You were going to say something, Jack?
Oh, I was going to say, so not only does he have the bell rung from the concussions, he has bad knees.
Oh, yeah.
And the VA will tell you it's not service connected.
Yeah. No, it's 10% is what they gave me. I was like, but they're both bad. Okay, 10% on my knees, I guess. Everything else, though, I'm covered.
Yeah, they documented 33 concussive events for me, but other than that, I had a blast in Iraq. So
wow, 33.
Yeah. Well, I ran
Man, and you were
trucks,
there.
so
You were there right before I arrived because you said 0305. I arrived 06 and 07.
yeah, I was there for OIF 1 and 3. And the other part of that is when you clear roads for route security, you clear them by Jason basically playing bumper cars. So you ram them off the roads. So it's not just the IEDs, it's the car accidents over and over again. Which is why when you see the cop videos and the guy just gets up after the police chase and he rolls his vehicle, I'm like, I've been in one of those crashes. It doesn't work like that.
I've seen guys, if they're highly motivated enough, they'll get
Well, I
up
mean, adrenaline will make you forget your pain for a moment,
Yeah.
but it comes back.
for a foot pursuit.
Yeah.
What we always joked about was the next day was watching them walk out of the hospital, usually in handcuffs because we actually caught them. Was the walking out of the hospital and walking like they were, a 95-year-old man with because they just they had done so much damage to themselves and not realized it while they were cruising along. So
Yeah.
I think I hit everybody up about this. Jill, did I get you on the
Yeah.
particular subject matter?
Yep.
Okay, so want to go on to how did you start creating? We've already kind of covered this a little bit for everybody, I think. So maybe we'll just move on past that unless somebody wants something they have to add about how they started creating and get to my next favorite question, which is your favorite guest or fanish kind of interaction for you, whether it's in the comments or actually having somebody on that you were just like, this is so cool, or that kind of thing. Let us and your fans know. Jim?
I think it's the realization that I wrote the kind of book that I like to read most, or at least I wrote the book for other people that is the kind of book I like to read most. Which is to say, sort of like comfort reading when everything is terrible, and you go, I'm going to go and read this book, and I will feel better afterwards. Like when one person tells you, oh, I read this in the hospital when my mother was dying, and it made me feel a little bit better. It's like, wow. When more than one person tells you that, like, oh, so I think it has been really nice having people. I absolutely hated writing the book. I hated it so much. I have never loathed a professional project more, except possibly making the audiobook. That took 20 months because everything kept. There were a series of cascading disasters, so that was possibly worse. But it was like, oh, but all of these people had a positive experience, and that that makes me very happy.
Very cool. JR?
So I'll answer it both externally and internally. So for me, one of the coolest things was one of the books I wrote had is a sci-fi book, The Reservist. It's in the Galaxy's Edge universe, and I wrote a prayer in there that the guy said it was kind of a bastardization of the here I see my mother and father calling to me, and I kind of made it sci-fi-esque, so plasma guns, and you can't have brass in that, in the Infantryman's Creed. I kind of merged them into a prayer. And somebody sent me a picture. They tattooed part of that on their arm, which was kind of cool. And there was another veteran who, because I've sent several copies of my books to various VA hospitals over the years, and they found it there. And so they were kind of in recovery. And for whatever reason, it spoke to them. So that was kind of cool to see. Because, I mean, that's kind of permanent. You can remove tattoos, but it's painful and a long process and doesn't like actively take all the time. So that one for me. And then when I first came back, like I didn't know I had the TBI. Originally, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with me. So I was going to the VA, getting the PTSD treatment and stuff done, and I was close to the point where I was going to end it all. But I found Kindle e-reader because for a while I couldn't read because I couldn't magnify it, and with the head injury, that's an issue. And I started reading Joe Vasicek's Starfarer series, but it was at the time when everything was novelized, or what do you call it? A novella every week kind of thing. Like it was the serialized. There we go. And so I was like, well, I want to know what happens next. So I'm going to end it, but I'll do it tomorrow, or, because I kept wanting to see what happens. And because he drug it out for so long, by the time I got to the end, I'm like, well, I guess therapy works. So for me, getting to interview him, knowing that like he doesn't know me, but he quite literally saved my life, was kind of cool.
Very cool. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's intense and very cool. Fletcher.
Let's see. I'll let Steve go first.
Oh, okay.
He's just
Okay.
throwing
All
you
right,
under the
fair
bus
enough.
left and right here. I was like, yeah,
Um,
let him go first.
okay. So I kind of misunderstood this question. But my favorite sort of guest experience was being a guest at a convention where before the convention, I was like, I had this crazy dream and I like wrote it on Facebook. And the person running the convention, Susie Rodriguez, hit me up and she was like, "No, we're turning this into a panel." So we put together this panel that was called Pretend We Are Famous, that had all these weird archetypes of people, and I was hosting it. And I was trying to keep this insanity together. And there was a certain bald guy who was also supposed to be a French model, I think, on the panel.
It's a few
Uh,
pounds ago.
yeah, yeah, but the panel was insane. Like we had Carrie Cesarargo, who's never drank anything in her life, sipped absinthe during that panel. People were just going nuts, like laughing hysterically with all our caricatures. I was fielding questions and feeding them to these folks who were just acting just completely pompous. And then at the end of that panel, because like a lot of the convention was there, like it was loud in that panel. Um, Jay Hartlove, who is an amazing dude, mind you, had put on a play at the same time, and he was like, I was like, "How'd your play go, Jay?" And he was like, "Oh, it was great, except for the fact that this damn panel, this pretend we were famous panel, I was up against, like stole there was nobody at my play." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Jay, but that was my panel, man." Like, and you were there, and that is still to this day one of my favorite convention experiences because I don't think I've ever laughed that hard on a panel.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, yeah. You made that. You and Todd Gallaglass, I think, stole the show on that
Yeah,
one.
well, yeah, Todd's a professional, bard basically at the Ren fairs and everything. So
Yeah,
yeah, he's got lots of much more serious chops as an actor than I certainly do.
yeah. Well, I think you can give him a run for his money after that panel. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that's probably my favorite. As far as like fans and stuff like that, almost nobody reads me because I'm terrible at self-promoting.
Well,
So.
even just like your interaction with somebody on the show on Bullshido or something like that,
Oh,
you were kind of cool about. It was a cool talk or
I mean, there's been a lot. It all sort of merges together. Though
Yeah, it
I hang
does.
out mostly I manage a lot of the Facebook page and all the interactions on there. And we've dealt with, I can think of more insanity than favorite experience. But yeah, I
living
guess I'll
living
let
in the
Fletcher take
internet
that one.
times, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I guess if I was going to answer the same question, I squealed like a fangirl when I heard Alex Trebek read our website on Jeopardy. There's a video. Yeah, it was like a what was the question? Well, the answer was Bullshido.net exposes frauds in these arts such as ninjutsu and aikido. That was what it was. And then I ended up like later that same week talking to the dude that got the question right on Reddit. It was like the 2011 Tournament of Champions because the internet used to be smaller back then. And so yeah, you just bump into people and stuff. But that was mine and personal. But we've had a lot of cool guests on the show. Like Steve said, I'm kind of terrible about promoting the show. In fact, when people I know personally offline that have nothing to do with any of this ask me about the podcast, I'm like, no, it's terrible. It's a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Don't listen to it. It's poorly produced, and the audio quality is garbage. So don't look for it on Spotify. And but we've had some cool guests. Rob Tuck, who was a professor in Arizona of media studies, accidentally became the world's foremost authority on ninjas. And so we had him on a couple episodes ago, and he broke down the entire history of ninjutsu, which is basically a media phenomenon. It's not real. It was a sort of recursive creativity process that it got entrenched in our heads, and now ninjas are a trope. So
yeah,
that's about it.
that's it. I'm trying to figure out who hands out that you're an expert. Like
Yeah,
you're the
yeah,
expert in this non-existent recursive
right. Yeah. So
imaginary class of warriors that I guess have their origin in the actual shinobi, and that's about it.
yeah, well, he gets grant money to research this, so I'm gonna go. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good enough for me.
for sure. And Jill?
Uh, I already answered the question.
Oh, you did. I'm sorry. My brain is
Yeah.
I
not.
was like, wait, what
today.
question are we on? No, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. My brain is also fried. It's 20 to 10 here, so I'm like,
Yeah. No, it's been a long day, and I'm getting messages. Uh, so what is it that everybody's into reading, talking about right now? What's your kind of cool thing that you're loving on or digging right now?
Not politics.
No.
Oh,
I have a running joke that I'm like many years late to everything. But currently I am rereading for the second time. I read the entire Vorkosigan saga. Um, and I'm now
What-
reading for the second time Captain Vorpatril's Alliance because several people told me to read it, but they all said basically the same thing, and it was such a long time ago that I forgot. But what they all said was, it's really good because it helped me because Cryoburn ends really, is really emotional. And for some reason, I thought that something terrible was going to happen at the end of Captain Vorpatril's Alliance. So I'm reading this book going, this is really funny. What terrible thing is going to happen? And then I got to the end and nothing terrible happens. There is a happy ending and everything's good. And I'm like, I'm going to read this again with the knowledge that nothing terrible actually happens and I've just got confused somewhere.
Without holding your breath? Yeah.
Yes,
Waiting for
I
there
was
to be more.
convinced that the love interest was going to die horribly and that it was going to be terrible. Then we got to the end and everyone's alive. And I went, I think I might have misremembered something.
Well, cool. JR?
After 4 years of people telling me, "Oh, I think you would like this," I finally decided to start reading it, and then read all of it in about a fortnight. So it's been good.
Good deal.
So I just started it because I started at the gym today. So I'm reading Mammoth by John Varley, and it's a time travel. Starts with a rich dude trying to sort of a stand-in for Elon Musk, essentially super billionaire who likes science, wants to clone a woolly mammoth and bring it back to life, which they're already trying in other parts of the world, so not too far-fetched. And then in doing so, they discover a mummy. This is in the description, so no spoilers. Oh, by the way, he has a Timex watch. So now you realize time travel is involved, and it goes kind of from there. I'm not far enough in to know much more than that, than the blurb, but so far the writing's good. I'm enjoying the audiobook. And that's what I do most of my listening is with my ears, or reading with my ears, I should say.
How many books do you read in a month? Jill's already said she got through one in 2 weeks.
But no, I read the whole series in 2 weeks, so I did about a book every couple of days.
Jesus.
Maybe
It
not.
depends on how busy I
I take
am
slightly more
in
than
my
that.
budget, because audiobooks aren't cheap.
Yeah.
But I did, when I was taking the kid to the library for summer book checkout. They were like, oh, they've got this library program that lets you rent or check out audiobooks, so that should speed it up. But the other part that slows me down is I write book reviews for Upstream Reviews. And so when you've got to read them to write kind of in-depth reviews, sometimes I might read the book 3 times before I get the review right, so I can get the details. So,
Wow. I'm sorry, but I got to go back to Jill on reading the whole Vorkosigan.
I think over the weekends I was averaging about a book a day. I think it took me more like 2 days to read them, but I got them all off the Bane CD that my husband got in some hardback Honor Harrington book he bought in, I don't know, 2002.
Yeah, we stopped doing that about 2008, I think, was the last time we did that.
I was about to have a moment of silence for your wallet if you bought all those at once, but I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah.
And
then I was going through going, am I in the right order? I don't know which one is next. Oh, we seem to have gone back 200 years. It's fine.
Yeah, that series is interesting in the way that it's kind of non-chronological in many cases. But yeah, I'm still kind of in awe. I'm trying to process the fact that you're reading a book a day. It just makes my eyes bleed.
Turns out you can do a lot of things quite poorly while reading. You can cook an entire roast dinner while reading, just not necessarily as well as you would have done it otherwise.
Not necessarily the way someone wants to eat it. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Hey, but there are timers on ovens. Everything's fine.
So how about you, Frost? We're going to make you stick to it this time.
I mean, these days I'm a big fan of just like popcorn stuff. I have taken detours into the more serious stuff, the Blind Sight and what is it, the Children of Ruin and those books. And it's good, and I like exploring philosophical questions, like consciousness, blah blah blah. But I also like stuff blowing up and people getting punched and that sort of thing. So hold on, let me reach back here. This this is, I don't know if you can see this, but it's a fake cover of a book from like an old pulpy science fiction book with a kid riding a giant cat man, and it says this planet fucking rules. And so that's my thing. That's what I'm into. The 1632 series, which is probably why that's how we connected in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I'm not saying it's not. There's not a more classic like hard sci-fi component to it, but it's fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It gets things right, and as much as you can get like a alternative history right. But it's also not. I don't know. It doesn't insist upon itself, to quote Family Guy. So I prefer stuff like that. It feels more authentic. Yeah, I spend my days thinking about serious crap anyway. And we all have jobs and work, and life is not exactly the most yeah, I like non-serious these days. So yeah, I like stuff that just completely takes me out of that and lets me think about things that are fun.
Very cool. Or so distant that they're not quite as important to the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not immediately in your face. It's the opposite of doom scrolling.
Yeah.
So
So just in terms of mixed martial arts and stuff, is there anything you're following right now, like a
honestly,
trend?
I kind of stopped watching the UFC because not just because it's like $80 a thing, but just because I'm not actively training so much. I was at Army Combative School a couple weeks ago, but I'm not. Yeah, the sport has gone in a different direction. We kind of in the early days helped like get it popularized and more mainstream, and it was just guys in cages and bars and stuff fighting. I used to be a judge for the Kansas Athletic Commission. I used to see some of those fights that were sketchy as heck and not so officialed very well with the rules, and people getting seriously hurt, and maybe there was a doctor there, maybe not, maybe just an EMT. So now that it's a thing, it's less fun, I guess. So
Very interesting. How about you, Steve?
Okay, so because I have to go over comics and books. So for comics, I'm rereading Deadly Class right now and All-Star Superman. All-Star Superman because it's a lot of the influence for James Gunn stuff that's coming out, and then Deadly Class because like as far as a comic is concerned, like those books read like poetry at times. I think the opening line is the main character says I don't believe in God, but I'm a hypocrite. Every night I pray. And that was the one line where I was like,
Uh,
"Oh, I'm hooked. I'm here for this." So I've got every issue of that I've reread. My actual book fiction current kick is like really surreal fantasy. So I think I'm finishing Piranesi and I just finished Starless Sea. But I go through phases where I'm like, yeah, this is what I want now, and this is what I want now, and this is what I. So right now it's just weird, surreal fantasy. And then I'm always, anytime there's anything new from Tim Powers, I read that because I love Tim Powers. And anytime, well, I would say about once a year, I reread one of the Hunter S. Thompson books, but I tend to prefer his stuff before he found his style because everybody knows Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but
right.
like.
It's not
I
necessarily
like
his best stuff. Yeah.
yeah, where he embedded himself like in the Hells Angels and all the stuff that led from that. Like I like the stuff before he found his style. I also like the stuff where he found his style, but I've been kind of hooked on that most of my life. Um so yeah, that's all my current book stuff. And I do not read that fast, as fast as Jill. I'm averaging maybe if I'm lucky, if I have enough time, like a book a month. So, which is kind of I've been super busy lately. So yeah.
So interesting that you say that about Tim Powers because the we have the Mills of the Gods coming out in December,
Yep.
by
And
him.
I'm anxiously waiting for it. I
You
have
see, you see the cover on that? In that
no,
cover?
I haven't.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I just know it's coming. I have so I got obsessed with him when I was going to Iraq and I was like, "Hey, let me grab a book off the shelf." And like I grabbed a Tim I think it was Last Call. It was definitely Last Call. And I read Last Call and then I was like while I was in Iraq, I was like, "Let me read more of his stuff." So I started ordering stuff and I wound up like I have a limited edition of the Bible Repairman. So I've loved everything he's put out. So,
So I dropped a link in the chat. Unfortunately,
okay.
our audience won't be able to see it, but you can check it out and see what you say. I'd like to hear what you say about it.
Okay. Yeah, let me look.
And now, as promised, one jump ahead. John Moore is a nanotech-enhanced soldier of fortune. Lobo is an AI, a living weapons and intelligence platform of enormous destructive potential. Two very dangerous wolves in a galaxy of deadly corporate and paramilitary predators. But Moore has grown weary of the killing, and just once he'd like to finish a job without leaving a trail of blood behind him. Not going to happen. Not on a pristine planet called Macon, where two gigantic corporations vie for control of the local jump gate and access to the riches of an undeveloped world. Dealing with a kidnapping and extortion scheme is only the beginning for Moore and Lobo as they work to stay one jump ahead.
Chapter 7. The huge gate on Landkin was the primary source of the planet's status. Sitting silently in space like a giant tangle of grape yarn, it was an impressive sight, with more active apertures visible through Lobo's viewport than I could easily count. Ships were sliding through all of them, the commerce of far-flung human settlements moving purposefully, and I assumed profitably, to and fro. On Macon, all the logoed ships had been Kelkos. Here, ships sported IDs of many types. Some were Kelkos, others Zycheks and the Frontier Coalitions, and still others represented many, many different firms. Every major company in this region of space, as well as the FC, maintained a significant presence on Landkin. I used the time it took to land and get settled at Beckon's Deal, Landkin's capital, to check out Osterlad as best I could. Slake's recommendation was a start, but I wanted more. From what I could find by trolling the publicly available data streams, Osterlad's eponymous company officially booked revenue from sales of heavy machinery of all sorts, from construction to farming to natural fuel extraction. From Slake's comment, I gathered Osterlad had also helped meet Kelko's private weaponry needs, which suggested Zychek bought elsewhere. The FC would certainly deal only with arms manufacturers, as would the SAW. I knew its buyers had always dealt directly with weapons vendors and always would, never being willing to trust any middlemen they could possibly avoid. Osterlad had a reputation for fair play, apparently staying on his rate card with big and small corporations equally. Whatever you needed, the word was that he could get it, provided, of course, that you could pay. Lobo and I took a flying tour of the coastline at the northern end of Beckon's Deal. The shore here was entirely different geologically from the one I had left on Macon. Gone was the enormous run of beautiful beach gently giving way to water. In its place stood high cliffs that dropped straight down to constantly active deep blue waves. The richest companies gathered at the coast, where each had built its main local presence directly into the rock. From my vantage point over the ocean and roughly parallel with the constructs, most of these corporate and FC structures resembled faces staring out to sea, stone beings or temples rather than office buildings, each temple the image of some alien god struggling to break free from the cliffs, its occupants no doubt busily preparing for the moment of their god's freedom and ascendance to power. Osterlad's official headquarters was no exception to the convention of strange, fortified luxury that marked all these buildings. He didn't mind showing that the pay for his products and services was good. From far away in the air, The 20-story stone building resembled a finger of rock, both laid against and composed of the night-black foundation of the cliffs. As we drew closer, however, I spotted carvings in the stone, carvings that turned the finger into a series of stacked faces, each of which looked in a different direction, the collection resembling a totem pole monitoring everything in front of it. The land around the top of the structure on 3 sides was clear for at least a click. The ocean guarded the final side. Warning signs in multiple languages let those too poor or too stupid to do sensor sweeps know that both the grounds around the building and the water below it were teeming with mines. The only access points were a single road that passed through a series of checkpoints and a landing pad on the portion of the ground that served as the building's roof. Osterlad believed in using his own products. The arsenal of weapons you could see was a strong statement that he could supply the best. I had no doubt that what you couldn't see was even more formidable. Kelco and the FC ran such large operations in Beaconsdeal that I didn't want to stay here long. I had to consider the reference from Slake at least marginally better than any information I could glean quickly from the available data, so I decided to go with Osterlad's firm. That reference was also good enough to get me an audience with the man himself. I took a taxi to the rooftop pad and went in alone and, of course, unarmed. I'd parked Lobo outside of town in a standard shuttle lot. I had full deed and title to him, so I felt no need to hide him. Osterlad's scanners passed me through without complaint. No one has yet bothered to develop good technology for scanning humans for nanomachines, because everyone knows no human can live while carrying them in significant enough quantities or dangerous enough forms to matter. Every time I feel a twinge of guilt for participating in the destruction of Agro, I remember how many times the demise of that facility has helped me stay alive, and I get over it. Guards escorted me into an elevator that took long enough to reach its goal that I wasn't surprised when the view through the black-tinted window was of the ocean just barely out of reach, its waves splashing the fortified plexi. I wondered how much it'd cost to build offices inside rock that hard, then wondered why I wondered. Selling arms had been and always would be a great business for those who are truly good at it. An attendant whose body was so carefully engineered for neutrality that I could tell neither his or her heritage nor gender guided me to a small waiting room outside a well-labeled and, I assumed, equally well-fortified conference room, showed me the amenities, and left me alone. The very rich and the very powerful always like to make you wait. Most people find this treatment frustrating, even humiliating. I don't. Instead, I use the time to gather data. The rich love toys, and most waiting areas are full of them. Machines, lonely machines, some of the best sources of information you can find. Osterlad had erred on the paranoid side, as I'd expected. Almost everything in the room was grown or built from organic materials, and thus free of the sensors and controlling chips that populate the vast majority of humanity's products. The sofa and chairs were framed in a rich, deep purple wood, sanded so long it was as smooth to the touch as a new lover's breast. Their cushions were a deeper, late sunset purple leather, as soft as the month's wages hookers that filled the evenings of the execs stuck in Beaconsdeal on extended trips. On a side table sat a small assortment of plain white porcelain cups, so thin the room's even glow seemed to pass through them from all sides. Next to the cups stood the only machine in sight. A copper-colored ornate drink dispenser, old enough that it lacked a holo display and still used pictures of the beverages it offered. They would have augmented the dispenser to link it to the building's monitoring systems because good customers would naturally expect not to have to state their preferences twice. This machine had to possess enough intelligence to at least pass along client orders. Standard operating procedure for anyone concerned about security would be to keep the dispenser's original basic controlling chips to manage the drinks, then add exactly enough intelligence to handle the transmission of information back to the main monitors. The transmission would go only one way and contain only fixed limited types of information, the drink orders, to minimize the information available to anyone who hacked the signal. These restrictions meant that if the dispenser was as old as it looked, it should have one very lonely little brain. I sat on the chair nearest the dispenser and listened for a few minutes, focusing on every transmission channel modern gear would use. Everything was clear, as I had expected. No one would make it this far with any comm equipment that Osterlad didn't provide, so I saw no reason he should bother to monitor the dispenser. I stood, chose a local Milano fruit drink from the machine's menu display, took the cup and leaned back against the table, this time tuning in to the standard low-end appliance frequency. Sure enough, the dispenser was nattering away like an old man relating a glory days story to his favorite pet.
This has been the Bane Free Radio Hour. Thanks for joining us at the heart of science fiction.
Next week, we bring you part 2 of our talk with our excellent panel, and later, we continue with part 25 of One Jump Ahead by Mark Van Neen.
Score by Ruth Judkowitz.